let's have a discussion about breasts, and nipples, and penises, and vaginas, and asses, and toes, what have you. Take these body parts, mix them together, and you might have yourself one snazzy looking human. But if you take any of these parts individually and examine them up close, sometimes our human reactions tend to be, man, that's actually kind of ugly. Breasts, large lumps of hanging flesh, useless until baby comes. Nipples are wrinkly and odd. Penises are just plain ugly. And vaginas, don't really need to say much about them. Sometimes we question our own sanity as to how we're so desperately attracted to these parts, and yet we're proud and insecure of our own. It seems it's not the parts themselves that we're turned on by, but the finished package that those parts total into. Even if we have a particular interest in one body part, we tend to hope that the body part has a whole human being attached, whole or partial, depending on your preference. Let's face it, we guys, and many girls, love boobs. We stare at them, we yearn to touch them, we play with them, want to sleep in them, rub our faces in them, etc. But then, when we finally get them, our bodies and minds have no instinctual idea as to what we are supposed to do with them. But we know we wanted them, so we better do something. Toes give me that same feeling. Boobs and toes, whatever, they don't do anything really to enhance the sex on the giving partner's side, besides the instinctual visual reaction itself and possibly mental satisfaction of being able to touch it. In some cases, breasts just get in the way. We get that restless, undirected, gotta do something feeling, and so we go with what's familiar. What we think our body wants while receiving no feedback other than the reaction of the receiving partner. So we want to touch them, which leads to fondling and groping, squishing and playing, but our hands don't feel any magical sex stimuli from the contact, so we want to move on to higher priorities. What's one rule most animals, including us, live by? If you can touch it and you don't know what to do with it, put it in your mouth. So we put our mouths on them. This leads to rubbing our lips against them, kissing, licking, sucking at the nipples or toes, but we still don't feel any magical breast sex stimulus in our mouths from doing this. The nipples don't have a magical taste to me, I taste like orgasm feeling, so again, we want to move on. And you still want to give it a good work ethic if the receiver is really enjoying it. But again, both parties can only be entertained by that for so long, because that part wasn't meant for us originally, and now that we've done all we can with the part our brains made our hearts feel desperate to have, we want to move on to higher ground yet again. So what's the next rule most animals live by? Well, you can't eat it, can you fuck it? Well, of course we can. A boob job or a foot job, etc. We'll put our stuff anywhere we think will make it happy. But again, cleavage in a woman's soles aren't evolutionarily developed to give the penis the proper stimulus, the happy feeling. I've heard guys can come from that kind of stuff, but there's only one place that fits, like a loving warm glove. So now it's time to put the king and queen of the ugliest body parts that we have together to produce the best, most beautiful possible reaction. Isn't it so odd and ironic to think about it that way? Tell me I'm not the only one thinking this kind of thing, because I love these parts. I want them too. I want to put my hands and mouth on them, except penises and asses. But I have to admit, on close inspection, each of these parts is kind of ugly. Not enough to steer me away, but you know what I mean, right? Just the tongue alone is hideous if you look at it from bad angles. But the pleasure it can give. Don't even get me started on the scrotum. There are actually people who want to put that in their mouths. Do you know what? Do you understand who its closest neighbor is, and how all the little wrinkly folds just hold in all his aura? Well, what do you call an ass? Is that him or her? Anyway, in seriousness, I do not wish to insult anyone or their preferences. I was just making a joke there. We all have our particular interests, and just because I find it weird and disgusting doesn't mean it has to be weird and disgusting to everybody else. Hey, I think feet and toes are sexy. And underarm hair on women. And fat women. So people should be able to enjoy what they wish to enjoy so long as they're not causing harm. Anywho, this whole thought process came from me drawing a couple pictures that I made. One was this picture of two women who are admiring and wanting the parts of the other. It's called I Wish. And another drawing is like, I bet you still want it, about this girl holding a magnifying glass to her nipple and it being all big and wrinkly and having some hairs coming out of it, but you still want it. Because it's a sexual body part. And now again, these are all just weird, odd-looking parts, but most guys would still love a chance to play with them no matter what, guys or girls, whatever. And so, what is another big driver behind wanting these parts? The evolutionary answer is simple. Mating trends, how long each member survived to be able to reproduce at all, a combination of survival and whichever arbitrary visual preference or preference guided by natural selection was popular at the time. Why do guys love big boobs? Well, why did women shave the tops of their foreheads during a period in history? It was a trend, a beauty trend. Boobs were more of a primitive trend because we've grown up and we wear shirts now. But yeah, whether it made sense or not, the men were impressed with women they could more easily tell apart from their male counterparts. That's where it comes from. For reproduction, those men who were tended to be more attracted to breasts and vaginas would make more babies, and those babies would carry on that tendency. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, it's just that's how it works. But, yeah, but no offense intended too, because small boobs are sexy, even though back in the day that's why men have an instinctual drive towards big boobs, is because back in the times when we couldn't really tell each other apart, when we were still sort of monkeys, there would be some women that would grow boobs and be like, hey, that's different from me. I want it. But we're more than our instincts, yet we are not instinctually aware of our instincts until we can discuss it with another person who shares them. From that perspective, to want bigger boobs is to want to feel more womanly, and thus to be noticed by more men who would be needed to carry on the genes that made the large breasts and desire for them in the first place, etc. To want smaller breasts is to want less back pain, and perhaps to be noticed less as a sex object or a freak. Unfortunately, some girls are known like that. Like, you know, the girl who develops boobs first in your class, what do? Constantly pick on her. It's sad, but that's what happens. And to be more noticed for having a personality in mind at the risk of becoming invisible for wanting smaller breasts. And the same goes with hips and butts. A girl with a sexy bigger butt might want a smaller one that's not so noticeable or gets in the way or wants to fit into better pants or get into public seating or whatever. But a girl with a smaller butt wants a bigger butt so that she can feel more womanly and be more noticed, which is a feeling that is part instinctual, part social pressure. And these are reasons that I've heard girls say. I'm not trying to be sexist. If any of this sounds so, I'm not saying all girls feel this way, but I'm just trying to share all the jumble of thoughts that came to my head from my own experiences with women as I was making these drawings or whatever. I'll even admit, sometimes I find feet and toes and underarm hair ugly too, depending on the pose or shape or whatever. And when I get them, but I still want them, when I get them, I still feel like I have no idea what to do with them. They're not sexual intercourse parts, and I don't have a proper receiver part built with the proper sensitive nerves to make receiving a girl's toes somewhere on my body an orgasmic experience, as much as the vagina does for the penis. So, but it doesn't hinder me one bit from desperately wanting them, wanting to get my eyes, my fingers, or my tongue all over them any chance I get. Is the human sex drive, people. It's why we have higher brains, so that we aren't constantly putting our dicks into random strangers or body parts or objects without their permission. Did I cover all the bases? Do people generally agree that these thoughts also cross your minds about body parts that are really kind of repulsive and yet we hunger deeply for them anyway? Or is it different for you? What parts do you wish you had more of, less of? Which parts do you kind of find ugly and beautiful at the same time, on yourself or on others? Do you think you're attracted to these parts because, besides hiding in clothes, they give off the impression of complete naked inhibition? As if saying, we're messy, we're imperfect, not smooth or clean or proper, like what you usually see, but you want us anyway, type thing? Is it no more simple than evolved brain mapping of certain shapes that trigger a happy anxiousness within ourselves? Which I think is a more accurate answer to that. Is that human nature, or did our horrendously religion-based society impose these feelings of disgust lust on us by shielding us from our own bodies for as long as possible, by telling them that our body parts are disgusting, are filthy, or evil? Why tell a child to stop playing with themselves if they're not doing it in a public place? Well, not in front of you anyway, or any other people no child in front of any other people. Why not let them explore their own bodies, but just tell them they have to do it in private, and to always wash their hands after? Isn't that more responsible than just demonizing these body parts, making them unnecessarily afraid of these body parts? Is this initial parental-childhood interaction the very basis behind the fear we have for our own private parts? A parental slap in the hand. Stop doing that, don't touch it, it's dirty, it's filthy, it's evil, it's gross. What does a child think? Or is it that our brains just have a silhouette image of what it takes, and when you get closer and see the real thing, you realize the silhouette has bumps and wrinkles and lines and divots and unevenness and dots and all sorts of imperfections that our brains don't quite know how to deal with right away, because on an evolutionary scale, some of these things might have meant sickness or disease, and that triggers our initial reaction of disgust or fear. Maybe that's why some of us like to turn the lights off during sex. Not me. I want to see all of my big, beautiful woman. But I still don't really like seeing a vagina really up close. But I still want to put my tongue in it.